down from that one.
Thank you very much, Joe and Deficio. And truth be told, there is not enough time in the day to talk about this particular game. There's so many facets that went right and went wrong at different stages of the game. Before we get into the early game, which was pretty well controlled by IG, I feel, I want to talk about those picks and bans. IG, once again, first picking, blind picking that Yasuo. Zitai did a phenomenal job on it. This time he was up against the Lulu. We talked about this champion's picks and bans. What was your take on Zitai's performance overall and that actual pick in this setup?
I think for the early mid game, I haven't seen a better Yasuo, actually. He's like pretty much playing perfect for the early mid game. In the late game team fights, he messed up a bit. I don't think he went for the right item build, but except for that, he played really, really awesome.
I mean, super solid. Giving a first pick champion in any team should get countered. If you counter pick your mid lane, you should be winning it. And at one point, Zitai was 2v1ing them in mid. Granted, that was a micro level misplay. At the same time, still he was owning mid.
Yeah, he did phenomenal on that champion. Let's talk about the early game in general. We've seen that Invictus Gaming had slightly higher CS numbers, slightly higher gold. They got a couple early kills, they got a couple early towers. You kind of felt like the early game was all about IG. What was your opinion on that?
I think for the early game, pretty much nothing happened till the 3-for-1 bottom lane actually went on. It was like Leona engaged onto the Annie, and they actually did manage to finish Annie, so I think it was one of KT Bullets dying for the first blood, and then afterwards Annie died, and then the rest of KT Bullets died bottom lane as well, and I think that snowballed.
That's basically what happened. I mean, Leona hit in an Annie lane. She's not going to do too much until level 6. Actually, that's a point I'll touch on that later, how that lane goes. But in that particular moment, once Leona hits 6, what she's going to do is she wants to all in the Annie. And that was a really good read by Illusion. Like, he showed up as a Wukong. Wukong doesn't gank too well, but he counter ganks really well. And that's what he did. Leona goes in, and right before Annie drops, Tibbers comes out, stuns into Wukong ulti. Leona drops from 100 to 0 before Annie's last 15% are taken down. Then Annie dies, which is like, oh, fine, I got first blood from my team, I sacrificed myself, and then the cleanup comes out of IG. And that's basically what solidified their lead early, and it led to a lot of early towers. But it's only in the mid lane, in the mid game, that they started struggling after those early towers.
Yeah, I kind of felt like Invictus, they got a decent lead, but they never really pushed past those outer turrets. And even though their team fights were sort of going in favor of IG, I was impressed by IG's sort of targeting in those sort of 10 to 30-minute fights. But Krepa, you were particularly saying that it was kind of a mixture of IG doing well and also KTB not playing it quite as well as some of their engages. The top lane fight, for example, where they caught out Illusion and he needed to flash over the wall.
I feel, throughout the game, KDP didn't perform mechanically super well in some of those instances, but I felt like they were learning a lot. You saw throughout this game, they played the fights better and better every time, and against a comp like this, they have to disengage. They were learning the behavior that IG was pushing out. At the same time, I was really disappointed with IG's macro level of strategy because their rotations, they weren't on point. And the solution to this game would have probably been a split push Yasuo, as we were talking about this during the game. They kept trying to get those towers. Once they couldn't, they said okay, we need an objective. But they went for Baron baits that went wrong twice, so they didn't execute their objectives correctly, which was their way to winning the game. So slowly but surely, KDB came back into the game.
Yeah, I agree. I think, first of all, in this comp, Yasuo should split push against the Mundo, because he will beat Mundo at all stages of the game, and Mundo can't TP away. And if Mundo doesn't get back up, he will just lose all his turrets. It doesn't matter if Yasuo loses half his HP by tanking a turret when he's trying to push it down, because Mundo doesn't have the damage to actually kill him. Yasuo sustains too much. And then on top of that, once they actually got the mid inhibitor, IG got the mid inhibitor of KTB, then they went back to Nash and they just started doing it, leaving it for 50-50, where they could just wait for super creeps to power up, and then the super minions will destroy their base.
Or even just get deep vision into the enemy jungle. Make sure you have vision control. There was not an Oracle's Lens at that point, I believe, so there was no definitive vision control, and all KDB just had to do was get somebody behind the Baron, ward over, okay, where are we at? Okay, they're here. The Baron's at this HP, we can play accordingly, and then Kha'Zix jumping in with his Q finisher is a good Baron steal.
Yeah, I completely agree. I also think they had two little sweepers. They had two sweepers at that point, where they were in complete control of the game. They had all the wards down they wanted. Swap out the yellow trinkets, possibly get one blue trinket upgraded, and then have 4 sweepers. You don't really need the yellow trinkets because you have all the wards you can buy.
Well, I know that Ryu is ready on stage. Before we go there, I want to just get some closing thoughts on you guys. Invictus Gaming, they're done for today. They will be playing the winner of Fnatic versus Millennium tomorrow for that final spot in the playoffs. Is there anything left that you want to touch on in this particular game that you feel is relevant, or that Invictus needs to maybe think about for tomorrow, considering that there's only one spot left in this group? Krepa, we'll start with you.
I mean, IG played the same composition twice in a row. Let's face it, they won't get that tomorrow. Their micro level of play was definitely good. I mean, their fights were solid, mechanics solid. Their macro level of play, like closing out the game, was lacking. Maybe we'll see teams abuse that tomorrow.
I think for the mid to late game team fights, they have to step up. They haven't quite been as in sync as they are in the early mid game, and if they step that up, I think they're really good.
Yeah, I definitely think from my side as well, IG definitely going to look at how they can get deeper on that map. Those kills and those fights are fantastic in 25 minutes, but if it doesn't get objectives, it doesn't matter. So as I said, Ryu is ready on stage with Shox.